Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. And in today's episode, we're just going to kind of build on what we talked about in the last episode. Now, in the last episode, we talked about fats on the move, basically talking about how do we transport these extremely important fats, essential fatty acids, and cholesterol. How do we transport that around our body so our bodies can use that for all the different things that our bodies use fat and cholesterol for? So this is when we talked about in last week's, we were talking about when you go to the doctor and get your cholesterol checked, explaining what is a VLDL, an IDL, an LDL, HDL, triglycerides, all that, and chylomicrons. So all that was described last week as far as how we move these fats. So today I want to focus on what are these fats that our body thinks is so important that we have to have a whole system just to transport around our body. Those fats that we're talking about, the two main fats that our bodies have, are fatty acids and cholesterol. And these two things have been the subject of the most crazy history of any other nutrient that I've ever heard of. And especially because we've been lied to for the last 45, 50 years about where people are telling us, the drug companies, the food companies are telling us that fat and cholesterol are what's causing our obesity and type 2 diabetes and all our disease states. Absolute lie, been proven over and over that is not true at all. And we'll talk about why they say that. But today I want to explain to you so you also know what I know about how important cholesterol and fats are. So first, like we said, the two fats we're talking about is cholesterol and fatty acids. Now, the difference between those two, those are not the same, even though everybody always says fat and cholesterol. They are lipids, which means they're fats, but these are molecules. So cholesterol is a molecule that has, besides having its carbons and hydrogens, it also has in its chemical structure, it has these rings. Okay, so that is made up of three different six-sided rings and one five-sided ring. And that's in the chemical structure. And that's called a sterol ring. And this is where we get our steroids because cholesterol is part of the basic building block of steroids, besides so many other things in our body. Now, versus take that's cholesterol. That's the molecule of cholesterol. Fatty acids are also a molecule, but they're just straight change, just a straight chain of carbon atoms with the associated hydrogen atoms along it. Okay, so that's the main difference between these two. So fatty acids are a straight chain. Cholesterol is a complex molecule that has these rings in it. And just remember, those are molecules. What we talked about last week with the VLDLs and LDLs and HDLs, those are particles. Okay, so when they say LDL cholesterol, LDL is not cholesterol. LDL is a protein and fat all together. And like I explained last year, it's like a protein submarine. And the cargo is both triglycerides, which is how we move fats, and cholesterol. Okay. So don't get confused between LDL, VLDL, and cholesterol and fat. Cholesterol and fat are molecules. The VLDLs and LDLs, those are particles. Okay. Two totally different things. Now, the other thing is, so let's just break it down to cholesterol. Let's talk about cholesterol first. What is cholesterol? Because we've been told that cholesterol is what clogs up our arteries, causes cardiovascular disease, and all these other horrible things. And we have to get cholesterol out of our system. We have to quit eating cholesterol. That's what we're being told. Again, this is a lie. And so I want to make sure you understand this is a lie that's being told to all of us. So first, what is cholesterol? Is cholesterol horrible for us? Is that what causes our disease and our cardiovascular disease? Is it just nice to have? Is it important to have? Or is cholesterol vital to our existence? Obviously, you can tell by the way I phrased the question, it is vital to our existence. If we did not have cholesterol, we would all be dead. Okay, cholesterol is so important. So, what organs use the most cholesterol? Of all the cholesterol that our body makes, we'll talk about that, the brain, because every single cell in our body, every single cell makes cholesterol. That's how important it is. And of all the cholesterol that our bodies make, our brain consumes at around 20% of all the cholesterol because it is so vital to our brain's ability to function. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit also. So the brain uses 20% of all the cholesterol that we use. And this is essential for the development of our nerve cells and also for the protection of the nerve cells. And this is why now that we've been given, we've been told that we're supposed to have, everybody is supposed to have these statins because cholesterol is so horrible. Now, what they found is people who are taking these statins, they are actually decreased cholesterol in their blood because it's toxic to us. It's actually killing our cells. And I'll talk about that in a little bit also. But what happens is now we're finding that we're starting to get all these neurodegenerative diseases because our bodies can't use the cholesterol like it needs to. And this is why we're seeing an uptick in Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's chorea, hyperactivity, and inability to concentrate. Those are just a few of the neurological issues that we're seeing now that everybody's putting on all these statins that are actually killing us. So, so what is cholesterol used for? That's kind of the big question. Cholesterol can be used for so many things. And now I talked about this in episode 68 on what are the most common adverse drug reactions with statins. And the fact is that the most common one is death to the cells of your body. And this is why, and I explained it in this. So I'm just going to briefly go over it because I explained all of it in episode 68. But basically what happens is like I said, every single cell in your body makes cholesterol. It needs cholesterol. The reason your body needs cholesterol is because there are certain things that your body every single cell in your body needs in order for that cell to function, do all its chemical reactions that it does to make the ATP for our energy that we need, and also to make cholesterol for other parts of the body. So what does this do? What happens is when our bodies need cholesterol, when our cells, they make their own, but sometimes they don't make enough. So what they do when they need more cholesterol is they put little receptor sites on the outside of their cells. So as these LDL particles, okay, these are the little protein submarines that are floating around blood that are carrying both triglycerides and cholesterol. When the body needs more, when a cell needs more cholesterol, it puts these receptors on the outside of it to bring more LDL to attach to it so it can bring the cholesterol in. Once the cholesterol gets inside the cell, that binds to a little enzyme, okay? It's called a 3-hydroxy 3-methyl-glutaryl coenzyme A. You don't need to know that. But that's what HMG-CoA is. So the cholesterol attaches this enzyme, and when it attaches that, it makes a substance called mevalonate. And this is very important because from mevalonate, this is the precursor to a lot of things that your body needs, your cells need in order to live, to survive, to function appropriately. So some of these things that mevalonate, okay, so cholesterol attaches to the HMG-CoA reductase. This makes mevalonate. Mevalonate gets turned into basically kind of several different things, but we'll just talk about 4 of them. Transfer RNA, okay? There is a substance called cholesterol that makes isopentenyl adenine, which is very important in transfer RNA. This is very important in the communication and the normal cell cycles of a cell being able to do its function and also to replicate. So when there's damage, a cell needs to be able to replicate to make up for other cells that are dying, because our cells are dying and being regenerated all the time. So it's needed for tRNA. Mevalonate is also needed for coenzyme Q10. If you've ever heard of CoQ10, this is extremely important. This is a very, very important molecule that is needed for the production of ATP. That's our energy. So if we don't have enough of this CoQ10, then we can't produce the energy we need, and that's going to cause all kinds of issues with our body. The other thing that's made for is heme A, okay? And this, again, is very, very important for our cell energy and also for our drug metabolism. We need heme A for this. Cholesterol is needed for heme A. And the other one is dolichol. And this is used for our membranes, our nerves, fetal development, all these things we need in order for our cells to function. When we take a statin that blocks this system, our body can't use it, so it can't produce any of those products that it needs to survive. And this is why our cells start dying. And again, that's explained, but when our cells start dying, because we've jammed up its system, it can't make mevalonate because now it has a statin stuck on it. When it starts dying, it starts thinking, oh my gosh, my system is messed up. I need to get more cholesterol in here quick so I can make more of this mevalonate so I can make these products. So it puts more receptors on the outside of its cell trying to get as much of this cholesterol back in so it can start surviving again. And that's why, as it puts more cells, more receptors on the side, it brings in more LDL. So if that's all you're looking at is LDL cholesterol, yes, your blood cholesterol is going to go down. But the reason it's going down is because you're killing your cells. And this is their last ditch effort to try to survive, is by putting more cells or more receptors on the outside. So that goes to the question, do LDLs cause cardiovascular disease? And the answer to that is no, it's not. We've been lied to. So now we have something that does not cause disease, and now we're giving a drug for that actually is causing conditions that people are dying from. So cholesterol is very, very, very important just for that cycle. But other things, cholesterol is a key component in the cell membranes of every single cell in our body. We have to have cholesterol for our cells. And again, we are producing more cells every single second. We're constantly tearing down cells and producing more. So we have to have cholesterol for that. It also, cholesterol is the key component in several of our hormones. It's a precursor. Cholesterol. So some organs, remember, some cells, most cells, almost every cell makes their own cholesterol, but some cells use a lot more cholesterol than they actually make. So we bring in a lot of cholesterol to those. A couple of these organs are your adrenal cortex. Okay. The adrenal glands, this is where you make different things like your steroid hormones, cortisol, your stress hormone. These are vital to life. If we didn't have cortisol that got us prepared for stress, we would die. And the base of cortisol, okay, this hormone is cholesterol. So without cholesterol, we don't have cortisol, we don't have our stress hormone, we can't take care of our stress. The other thing is it also goes to our gonads, so our testes and our ovaries, because cholesterol is the basic ingredient for testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. All these sex hormones have to have cholesterol. That's how they're made. So to say that cholesterol is bad for us is absolutely ludicrous. The other thing cholesterol is it's a key component in vitamin D. And we've been hearing a lot about vitamin D, especially since we found a lot of people dying because of vitamin D deficiency during the COVID scare. But this is important also because vitamin D is extremely important. The best way to get this is from the sun. We've talked about this in the past podcast, but we need to get that from the sun. And when people stay inside all the time, they aren't outside very often. And when they do, they lather themselves down with this chemical toxins of sun protection. What they're actually doing is they're decreasing their body of getting extremely important ultraviolet light, red light, and vitamin D production, and other things also. So sunscreens is just another chemical we're putting in our body we don't need, and we do need the sun. That's for a whole nother topic, and I won't talk about that right now, but definitely Google it, look it up. Sun is so important to our bodies. Another thing that cholesterol is used for is to help us with our digestion. So cholesterol is excreted from our liver into our common bile duct. Okay, this is our biliary tract. And there's other components, and we'll talk about other components of our bile salts. But this goes into our bile salts, and that's what helps us break down the fats in our intestines. So we have to be able to break those down so we can get them absorbed. And while we're getting them absorbed, we also can get our fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K absorbed. If you are not eating fat, then you are not going to be able to absorb your vitamins A, D, E, and K as well, and therefore you can become deficient. And so that's another reason why cholesterol is so important, because it's a major component of our bile salts, and we need that. And the other reason is just metabolism. Cholesterol is used; it helps the body's metabolism function efficiently, just overall. So cholesterol is extremely important. It is not just a nice thing to have. It is vital to our existence. And that's the main thing that I want you guys to understand. So where does cholesterol come from? Okay. There are two different ways that we can get cholesterol. Either, like we said, our body makes it, or we eat it. Okay. So if we make it from within our body, that's called endogenous. Okay. Our body makes that. If we have to eat it from the outside, that's called exogenous. So we have to eat that from the inside, from the food that we eat. So as far as endogenously, the cells in our body, like I said, every single cell in our body makes cholesterol. And our body, the cells in our body, we produce on the average of around 800 to 1200 milligrams per day of cholesterol. Okay, 800 to 1200 milligrams. And however, our liver and our muscles, they store this cholesterol, and then so that can be transported around the body for all those functions that I just mentioned. So our bodies actually store 40 to 50 grams. Okay. So it makes around 800 to 1200 milligrams a day, but it stores 40,000 to 50,000 milligrams. Okay. This is stored, and it's mainly stored in the liver. The liver stores about 80% of all the cholesterol that our body has. Okay. It stores it there. It kind of aggregates that in the liver. And then what it does, if you listen to my last podcast, it transports that around the bodies, and it does it by putting into these VLDLs, these very low density lipoproteins. And again, talked about that last week. So it puts this in the VLDLs along with the triglycerides and transport it all around the body to give to all the cells of the body that need this vital nutrient. But the other thing does, after it puts it in that, another thing that our liver does with this cholesterol is it excretes it into the common bile duct. Okay. And this is important. This is what we talked about earlier, because the bile that's in our bile duct goes through the common bile duct, through the sphincter vodi, and it lands in the top part, the duodenum or duodenum, however you want to pronounce it, the very first part of your small intestine. But there's a lot of other things that are in this bile that's very important to the digestion of all of our food. So some of these things, there is a pancreatic duct. So it's called a common bile duct because there's a cystic duct that comes from the gallbladder, the pancreatic duct that comes from the pancreas, and then the hepatic duct, which comes from the liver. And all three of these drop into one duct. So it's called the common bile duct, and that's what gets excreted into the intestines, and that's how we dissolve our food. So from this, we're going to have enzymes that break down protein, which is protease, enzymes that break down fat, which is lipids, so it's called lipase, and also enzymes that break down carbohydrates, called amylase. All three of those enzymes come from the pancreas and gets dropped into the common bile duct. From the liver, we're going to be getting cholesterol that our body's going to be putting in there. And we're also going to be getting some sodium bicarbonate. And this is something that's going to neutralize the stomach acid as the food comes out of the stomach. So this is all important also. That also comes from the liver. The other thing that is in this bile is bilirubin. So our red blood cells are constantly breaking down. The life of a red blood cell is at about 4 months, 3 to 4 months. And so they're breaking down. And when they do, they produce this bilirubin. And the liver takes this bilirubin and excretes it in the biliary tract. And that goes dropped into our intestines also. And then the last thing is the cholesterol also that's in the bile has antibacterial effects. So if there's any bad bacteria that's in the food that you're eating, then this can also kill that bacteria as well. So there's so many things that bile is so important for, and cholesterol is a main component of this bile. And besides that, the other thing to realize, the bile or the cholesterol that comes from the body, okay, the cholesterol that comes from the body is called non-esterified, okay? To be esterified, it means you're putting all these bulky little side chains on it. The cholesterol that our body makes is non-esterified. So it's putting this non-esterified cholesterol into our intestines. Okay. And I'll explain why that's important in just a little bit. But so we want this non-esterified cholesterol in there. And the reason why is because when let me go a little bit further. Okay. The intestines. Okay. We talked about the cholesterol that our body makes. Okay. So everything we've been talking about is the cholesterol that our body makes. Now let's look at the cholesterol that we eat. Okay. This is the exogenous cholesterol. When we eat food, we only consume about 300 to 500 milligrams of cholesterol a day. That's about all we consume. Now, people like me and all the people that we follow that's trying to explain to people, how we've been lied to for all these time about our nutrition. And that's why we're so sick. We eat a lot more animal meat and animal fat. So we may eat closer to 800 milligrams a day. But remember, our bodies actually make close to 1,200 calories or 1,200 milligrams a day. So very little of this food that we're eating is just a small percentage. But the other thing, remember I said that the endogenous, the cholesterol we make is non-esterified. Okay, means it doesn't have all these bulky side chains. The cholesterol that you eat, it is esterified. It has all these bulky side chains on it. And you'll understand why that's important in just a little bit. And that's because now we've talked about the cholesterol that our body makes. We've talked about the cholesterol that our body eats. Okay. So now we have all this cholesterol in our intestines, and the intestines are like the main contractor of where all this cholesterol is going to go. But in the gut, 85% of all the cholesterol that is in our gut comes from the cholesterol that our body actually makes and then excretes it into the gut. Only 15% of the cholesterol in our intestines is from what we eat. Okay. So the intestines are this great regulator of our cholesterol. But the important thing also, remember, is that what we eat, okay, if we don't eat enough cholesterol, our body will make more. If we eat a lot of cholesterol, our body will make less. But our body knows how much cholesterol it needs, and it regulates it going in and out of our intestines. And the way it does that is it has little receptors. Our intestines have these little receptors on all the intestinal sites, the cells of the intestines. They have one kind of receptor, okay, that allows all the cholesterol that's the non-esterified cholesterol. It allows that to go back into our bloodstream, okay? So the non-esterified, which means the cholesterol that our body made and then excreted in the intestines, that cholesterol can get reabsorbed back into the body if our body needs more cholesterol. However, these receptors if you have an esterified cholesterol, like what you eat with all these bulky side chains, that molecule is way too big. It cannot fit through these receptors. Now, the receptor we're talking about that allows these cholesterol to get back into the bloodstream is called a Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 transporter. Again, you don't have to know it. I'm just letting you know that it is known how this happens. So these Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 transporters, all these non-esterified cholesterols, the one that our body make to put into the intestines, those are going to be the ones that get absorbed back into our body and transported all the way around. However, there's also cells on the intestines that allow cholesterol to come back through the bloodstream and get into the intestines. And again, these are the non-esterified cholesterols. And this receptor that allows cholesterol to go from the blood back into the intestines are called the ATP binding cassettes G5 and G8. Okay. So our body is constantly regulating how much cholesterol it needs in the blood, how much it needs. And it just allows cholesterol, the non-esterified cholesterol, to go in and out of the intestines. So it regulates this. But the esterified, the ones that you eat, almost all of that gets excreted right out through your intestines. Okay, right out into your stool. So when they say that eating saturated fat raises your blood cholesterol, it's a lie. That's not what raises your blood cholesterol. Okay, your body is very, very strict on how it regulates all of this cholesterol. And the important thing to know is when you decrease the amount of cholesterol that you eat, or when you take statins that totally mess up your cholesterol system, what they found is this does decrease the amount of HDLs that you produce in the intestines. And this also is extremely important because if you remember from what we talked about last week, your HDLs are what are called your good cholesterol. It's not cholesterol, it's a particle. It's a high density lipoprotein. So it has your protein, specifically your A1 protein, and then it also has around that, it has the triglycerides and it has the cholesterol down in the hull of this submarine that takes this all around your body. So um, it is not. So the HDLs are very, very important. Those are the ones that go around and help collect all the cholesterol and mind, take care of this whole fatty acid and cholesterol system that our body uses because it's so important. So that's one of the keys that we have in making sure that our system is working the way it's supposed to. The way it does this is we have to have these HDLs that go around our system and collect all this extra cholesterol so it can move this cholesterol back and forth. When we decrease our cholesterol, our HDL levels drop. And remember, the main thing is not how much cholesterol you have, it's your ratio. And I talked about this in the last one too. What you do when you get your cholesterol level, you check your total triglyceride level divided by your HDLs. And you want that to be less than 2 and preferably around 1:1. So obviously, if you're dividing triglycerides by your HDLs, the higher your HDLs are, the lower that number is going to be. Same thing. The other thing that you want to look at when you get your lipid panel is you want to look at your total cholesterol divided by your HDLs. And you want that number to be 5 or less. And really, you'd like to have it less than 3.5. But again, if your HDL levels are high, so when you divide your total cholesterol by your HDLs, that number is going to shrink. And that's what you want. So the higher your HDLs, the smaller those numbers and the better your health. However, when we've been told to decrease our fat intake and our cholesterol intake and take all these statins that are totally gumming up our whole cholesterol system, we're noticing people are coming in with a lot lower HDLs. And the only thing that actually looks like it's protective against cardiovascular disease is increased HDLs. So again, we have been lied to. I wanted to make sure you understand cholesterol. Cholesterol is vital to our existence. Every single cell in our body makes it. Some cells can't even make enough because our body uses so much, like our brains and our gonads, our testes and ovaries, and our adrenal cortex. So we have to get even more to them because they're providing all these nutrients, all these things that our body actually has to live. So cholesterol is not something to be afraid of. Eating cholesterol is not something you have to be afraid of. What you have to be afraid of is not eating enough animal fat, not eating enough cholesterol. And that's where we're seeing a lot of our neurological damage. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. We'll only talk about cholesterol for this one. And then next week, I'll talk about the fatty acids and what happens to our system when we get too many. So I'll stop that for today. And I hope you tune back into next week because I really think this is very important, mainly because we are fighting against all the drug companies, all the food companies, all the American Diabetic Association, the USDA. Everybody is trying to tell people that there is a lot of problems when you eat fat and cholesterol, and that is a lie. And again, just one other thing to realize why the lie. Just as one example, back in 2011, the drug companies made, they made $956 billion, $956 billion in 2011 worldwide on the use of statins. Okay. This is a huge moneymaker for these companies, a huge one. So will they ever come back and say, oops, we're sorry, we messed up. We didn't look at the literature. We didn't look at the science. We didn't realize how important cholesterol is when we told everybody that fat and cholesterol was bad. No way will these companies ever say that. They won't. So we have to get out there, me and all the food science people, the physicians out here, the pharmacists, the nurses, the dietitians, everybody that's trying to get this word out to everybody. Please do not be afraid of eating fat and eating cholesterol. In fact, you need it for survival, for your body to function the best way it can. So again, today we mainly talked about cholesterol. Next week, we're going to talk about fatty acids and make sure that you totally understand what's going on and why we're being lied to. So for today, as always, thank you so much for listening. And have a fantastic week. And always, as always, remember, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.